OSHA is proud to join with the National STEPS Network and take part in the 2013 National Oil and Gas Safety Stand-Down. The goal of the stand-down is to increase the level of awareness for all those who work in the oil and gas industry of the hazards causing injuries and the methods that can be implemented to reduce the likelihood of their occurrence or the severity of the incidents. OSHA is working together with the U.S. onshore exploration and production industry to help facilitate a step change in worker safety and health. We all want the same thing, to see workers go home safely each day. Nationally, OSHA has conducted over 2,100 enforcement inspections in the oil and gas industry in response to the rising fatality rate in the industry you work. However, OSHA cannot impact and affect this issue without your cooperative assistance. We have held successful stand-downs in the Dallas and Denver regions that have yielded impressive results, and now it is time to apply this approach to reducing injuries, illnesses, and fatalities nationally. Whether you're a corporate official, field supervisor, or a worker in the field, the information we are about to provide you is applicable. Each of the fatality incidents that we will discuss is a real event that involves a worker who is either a family member or a friend to someone who did not go home from work that day. The accident cases we will provide here are only a few compared to the 72 incidents that have occurred during OSHA fiscal year 2013. We have seen trends in the types of events that are the root cause of these fatal incidents. As you can see, the major causes have been related to struck by, caught in, falls, and fire explosion hazards. During this stand-down event, participating companies will be asked to voluntarily commit a short period of time on a regular basis to evaluate their operations and engage in active discussions with their employees. The STEPS Network has assembled several tools to assist employers, including comprehensive safety inspection checklists, safety alerts, and fatal facts worksheets. The following is an overview of several incidents investigated by OSHA nationally. This overview is not intended to assign fault or blame, rather to support the stand-down activity by increasing the awareness of workplace-related hazards.
An employee was working on the derrick board, stringing pipe, when he attempted to remove a screen from one of the drilling pipe sections. He was unable to do so from that location. He climbed up to the monkey board to use a tool to help him remove the screen. At the time, he was wearing a fall protection harness with a retractable lanyard. Once he got to the top, he began to cross over another employee who was also working on the monkey board. The crew below was still tripping pipe into the hole. As he was crossing over, the traveling block and top drive were descending. The lanyard, still attached to the employee, became fouled on a clasp from the traveling block, pulling the employee off the platform and snapping the harness line. The employee fell approximately 75 feet to his death. He was 22 years old. Critical factors in prevention. Fall protection systems, to include their anchoring mechanisms, should be designed to ensure their pathways remain clear of the traveling block and all moving mechanical parts. Whenever an employee is climbing or descending the derrick ladder, keep the traveling block and all moving mechanical parts in a stationary position. This will prevent any catch onto the fall protection system line.
An employee working from the derrick of a service rig was killed when he fell approximately 50 feet to the rig floor below. The victim was tied off with a lanyard and lifeline connected to the derrick. The lifeline was constructed of natural manila fiber with apparent wear and damage. The employee in the derrick lost his balance and fell from the derrick board. The manila rope lifeline severed, allowing the victim to fall to the rig floor below. He also struck another employee, a floor hand, working on the rig floor, who also received injuries in the incident. Critical factors in prevention. Personal protective equipment needs to be inspected on a regular schedule for damage. Defective personal protective equipment, the damaged rope in this case, was used by employees. Employees must be trained in the proper care, maintenance, and useful life and disposal of all related personal protective equipment.
A crew engaged in well servicing operations had just removed the last of a 2 7/8 inch pipe from the well and was preparing to remove the top flange cover in order to begin snubbing operations. The well was still under pressure and was free-flowing oil and gas to a separation tank. As the employees were removing the flange bolts, there was an uncontrolled release of pressure and the flange blew off. The flange amputated the arm of one employee and gave concussions to 2 others. Critical factors in prevention. Ensuring the correct well control procedures are following at all times is important. For example, making sure the pipe ram is closed prior to beginning snubbing operations. It is also important to ensure employees engaged in oil and gas operations receive training specific to their work operations and potential hazards. This is especially important for short service employees and those new to the company. Prior oil field experience is not necessarily an indicator of one's knowledge of safe working practices.
An employee on the drilling floor, the driller, was killed when he was struck by the parted drilling line. During tripping out operations, the drill pipe became seized or stuck in the well, making it difficult to remove or pull the drill string out of the well. The driller began working the drill string up and down. The wire rope parted between the traveling block and the crown of the rig. The traveling block fell to the rig floor and a section of the drilling line struck the driller, causing fatal injuries. Inspection and engineering examination of the wire rope indicated evidence of breaks, crushing, and other damage to the drilling line wire rope, overloading its capacity. Critical factors in prevention. Perform thorough inspections and maintenance on drilling line wire rope in accordance with API 54 recommended practice to include slip, cut, or replacement when visual inspection shows signs of breakage, crushing, or other damage, or when ton-mile calculations show limits of wire rope have been reached. Also develop and implement a rotary line service program for drilling rigs. Ensure employees working around and near wire ropes are educated in proper wire rope inspection.
4 employees were engaged in well servicing operations. They were preparing an existing site for the installation of a new pump jack or horsehead pump. The employees had just removed the well pipe and were in the process of reinserting it into the well hole when the well started to overflow. The flow was initially low, only a few inches high, but quickly grew to over 50 feet. The crew attempted to swedge the flow, to no avail. The operator attempted to activate the BOP. The BOP failed to activate. The operator recharged the system. This time again, no activation. For a third time, the operator tried to recharge the system and activate the BOP, and for a third time, it did not activate. The engine began to race, and an explosion occurred. When the well exploded, one employee, the newest, only 2 days with the company, was trying to climb down the well mast. He had nowhere to go and was engulfed in flames. He was 21 years old. The other 3 employees were on the ground and were blown back by the blast. All 3 suffered severe third-degree burns. One floor hand died the following day. He was 29 years old. Another had received burns so severe that both legs were amputated. Critical factors in prevention. It is important to ensure employees receive training specific to their work operations and potential workplace hazards. It is also important to ensure that correct well control procedures are followed at all times. This includes ensuring the BOP is correctly installed. Also, to ensure an auxiliary means of escape, such as a Geronimo line, is installed. For this instance, if the line was installed, the mast employee would not have had to climb down towards the fire and explosion. Finally, employers must ensure that personal protective equipment, or PPE, suitable for the work operations is provided and utilized. This is particularly important for work operations where the nature of the hazards require the use of flame-resistant clothing, or FRC.
3 oilfield workers were hospitalized with burns when a crude oil well kicked during a drilling operation and fire engulfed the drilling rig. 4 workers received burns from the incident. After evacuating the rig floor, 2 employees returned to the rig floor to turn off the racing diesel engines powering the drilling rig, while the other 2 workers went under the rig floor to activate the blowout preventers in order to close in the well. Ignition occurred before the BOPs could be activated and the fire ensued. The fire burned for 2 days over a weekend until a well control contractor could cap the well. All 4 employees were wearing FRC. Due to FRC use, burns to employees were isolated to hands, face, and neck for the most part. 1 employee suffered additional burns under FRC clothing due to improper wearing of his FRC. Critical factors in prevention. During drilling operations, well control must be maintained at all times in accordance with API standards. BOP actuators must be positioned in a location where they can be activated during evacuation. Proper donning and wearing of FRC is essential, which shall include collars closed, sleeves and cuffs worn down and secured.
This case involves 3 employees that were performing maintenance on a water and oil separator when a flash fire erupted. Crude oil spilled out of the separator, and the impact tools they were using caused the gas and fluid to ignite. The workers were wearing short-sleeved FRC. This resulted in the employees having burns on their arms. All 3 employees were airlifted to the local emergency burn center. The critical factors in prevention in this case was the lack of monitoring for the lower explosive limit, where the presence of flammable vapors are reasonably anticipated. The short-sleeved FRC was an inappropriate selection of personal protective equipment for this operation, and there was a failure to control sources of ignition in an environment containing flammable vapors. In this case, 1 employee was killed and another hospitalized with 2nd and 3rd degree burns after a fire and explosion at a production tank battery site. The crew was in the process of transferring liquid from a tank using an electric pump. The liquid in the tank contained water, residual flammable condensate, and natural gas. After the pump had been operating for approximately 30 seconds, the vapor ignited, causing the fire and explosion. The pump was not approved for use with flammable liquids and had a warning label stating such. The employees were not wearing FRC at the time of the incident, and the company did not have a policy established requiring its use. The critical factors in prevention in this case were: FRC was not worn or required when employees were exposed to a flash fire hazard. An unapproved electric pump was used where flammable material such as natural gas was present, and procedures needed to be developed for the inspection of equipment before and after use in flammable environments. An employee was electrocuted while attempting to set and install a guy wire at a crude oil well site. While he stretched out the wire, it made contact with an overhead power line, resulting in a fatal electrical shock. 2 other employees near the servicing rig also received electrical shocks, but they did not result in injuries. The critical factors in prevention in this case are: when working in the vicinity of overhead power lines, it is critical the approach distances or safe clearances are maintained for the voltage involved. In this instance, 10 feet was a safe clearance required. Secondly, ensuring warning signs, barricades, or labels are affixed to equipment, or designate an attendant when workers may approach live electrical equipment. And finally, provide training to employees regarding safe approach distances where they work near energized overhead power lines. As we saw earlier, there have been 9 fatal accidents involving on-site transportation incidents last year. One was a truck delivering equipment to an oil and gas site when a winch truck backed up to the arriving load to unload the equipment. A worker walked in between the 2 trucks to connect the winch line to the equipment. The driver of the winch truck did not see the employee and backed his truck closer, pinning the worker between the 2 vehicles. The employee died at the local hospital due to the crushing injuries suffered in the accident. In another transportation accident, an employee was walking alongside a slow-moving rough terrain forklift at a job site when the employee fell and was run over by the forklift. The critical factors in prevention in these cases are to develop and implement a site-specific traffic control program, including the positioning of workers, the use of backup alarms on vehicles, and utilizing spotters whenever equipment and vehicles are operated near workers on foot. The spotters are not only there for directing equipment and vehicles, but to control foot traffic to keep them at safe distances.
In addition to the OSHA events that have been highlighted here, BLS statistics reveal another type of fatal event that merits your attention. Approximately 45% of all fatalities that occur in the oil and gas industry involve transportation incidents. Even though most transportation fatalities do not fall under OSHA's jurisdiction, please consider this when you perform your stand-down activities. These tragic incidents often shared similar conditions, such as involving inadequately trained or new short-service employees, equipment set up in operation, or simply awareness of the hazards and means to prevent them. As we stressed earlier, the workers involved were our friends and relatives. On behalf of OSHA, I would like to extend my sincerest gratitude towards all of you who have chosen to make this commitment towards creating a safer workplace through your voluntary participation in the stand-down. Thank you, and work safely, today and always.